We start with our first speaker for the day. Our speaker this time has over 20 years of extensive process and risk consulting experience in the telecommunications sector. He has worked closely with some of the policy level initiatives at an industry level with the assistance of the Cellular Operators Association of India and the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. He also leads the revenue assurance solution across the telecom sector and has now diversified to multiple other industries. Can we put our hands together for our first speaker, Mr. Peeyush Vaish, partner and TMT industry leader, Deloitte South Asia.
Right. Good morning, everybody. And, thank you for giving me this opportunity, PG. Really appreciate your time. I think, while we're going to spend the entire day talking about what's happening in 5G, what are the enterprises doing, and we've got all the bigwigs from all the telcos here. I think what I thought was, let me go back a little and talk about how the whole industry has evolved. And, one of the things that, when I was reflecting on the way was that while we talk about a lot of innovations that continue to happen in the years to come, I think some of the legacy innovations have done, probably the way they're used today changes, but I think we largely stick around with them. We're a generation which is, we want to ape something which is more tech savvy, but at the same time not leaving ground fundamentally on what we've been there with. So, if you look at it, these four pictures, and I'll probably use a lot more pictures in my presentation because there's going to be really hard talk coming in over the day. Probably in the next few years, each one of these things which all of us have used and all of us continue to use will die down. And probably the reason for that is the speed at which we access. Routers today, the traditional routers that all of us have in our houses, probably they will not live any more life in the next few years. And very shortly, probably they'll just vanish away. You look at smartwatches. I always say that if the day Apple comes out with a ring, I think the smartwatch will die down. Today you have so many companies that are coming up with rings that you wear. Probably you get a lot more access. There's just so much of edge computing that is happening right on the device today that probably these devices will fade away in the years to come. Hard disk, I think most of our laptops in corporate world do not have access to a hard drive. We can't even plug in a hard drive on that, and we don't miss it at all. Everything's on the cloud. Even my data on the phone is on the cloud. So I don't know, probably the new generation today, or the Gen Alphas that we call it, they'll probably never understand what a hard disk meant. And all of us used to carry hard drives with us. So we've seen evolution of things happening over the last probably a decade, 15 years, and we'll continue to see this happen more and more. Passwords, you don't need to remember any more passwords today, right? You've got everything which is either biometric or sensors, etc. You don't need to have passwords, etc. And that's all happening together because of the way we're probably bringing technology together with the speed of connectivity. Some of us don't realize that, we probably take it in our day-to-day strides. That, I'm getting all the speed, which is very natural. But that is happening because of the investments that are being made by telcos on 5G networks, because the policies of the government, which are really enabling. And I think, PG, you talked about the speed of 5G acceleration in India. Probably the rollout in India is the benchmark for the global world. We've just rolled out so dramatically fast that it will continue to, it will be actually remembered as probably one of the fastest grown networks. The challenge is that in any country that you see, you've always got 3 generations of G sticking around. Whether 3G, 4G, 5G, you had 2G, 3G, 4G. So the question is, when do I start to diminish one of them and get into a world I'm probably living with 2Gs rather than 3Gs, 3G, 4G, 5G. Probably at some point 3G will fade away, we'll have 4G, 5G, and now the world is talking about 6G. So I think that whole evolution will continue to happen, and we'll see a lot more action that's going to take place. This is a very interesting thing, and I've still never understood why do device manufacturers sell you a 128 GB, 256 GB, 1 terabyte phones. I've still never understood this concept, and all of us probably get succumbed to the fact that we'll go and buy a 256 GB phone or a 512 GB phone. With the kind of connectivity that you have, do I require a device which probably requires a 512 GB? Everything's on the cloud. So probably very shortly, you will see where device manufacturers, whether it's Apple, whether it's Samsung, whether it's any other vendor, will probably get rid of this concept of 128, 256, 512, 1 terabyte. It's just going to be a device. We will not need data on the device. The data will be on the cloud. And because of seamless connectivity, fast connectivity, you will never realize that I'm actually pulling data from the cloud rather than pulling from my own device. So I think from a consumer perspective, probably those are the things that are changing, and you will continue to see evolution around this piece. I mean, just think about it, very basic thing. Probably a lot of us have got 256 GB phones. Why do I need a 256 GB phone when everything's going to get on the cloud? So I think those are the things that are probably you will see a lot more changes happening in the years to come. And that is something that we need to reflect upon as enterprise builders. What is it that I'm offering the market? What is it that is going to sell in the marketplace for the future? Because all of us are here to build up probably an industry of the future, not the industry of the current period. This is, let's look back a little bit. The first photograph that I want to show probably is the sword of debacles. I don't know if any of you have seen it. This was the first AR that came in 1960, which was tagged to a head, and you could take out designs around that piece. And we still use AR, VR. Maybe the headsets have changed, maybe the glasses have changed, but we continue to use that. So I'm saying what I'm reflecting upon this is that generations have changed, but the ideologies and the concepts largely remain the same. 1960 was the first AR headset that came out. How different is it from the one that we use today? Maybe a lot more advanced, a lot more technology driven, a lot more interconnected, but it's been there in the past. If you look at, RFID tags, I mean, it's been there for ages together where an RFID tag was there. And this was the first company, Gary Werber, which actually went in to build up RFID tags, which had a sensor, which had a radio, which had an antenna. We still use the radios, the antennas, and the sensors. But it's been there for years, except that the whole technology has changed around this piece. So very, very distinct thought around what's happening in the world today. And obviously, then you have things like, the traditional phone, where the first message that went was Merry Christmas. I mean, you may have used to a WhatsApp, but you continue to do messaging services. I mean, this was the first message that went out, a Merry Christmas on a Nokia device. And now it's actually evolving much more than a WhatsApp perspective. So technology will continue to evolve, but the way we use technology will change, but the medium will continue to really remain the same. That's what really I wanted to probably talk about in this piece. Now, what is happening basis the pixels from the industry? We've seen robotic surgeries happening, and it's truly become a fact that a lot of robotic surgeries are happening where a far more sharper means of doing it, touching the rural areas. Maybe from an India perspective, you're still a little far away, but this is a reality. It is happening today, and that is only because of the fact that you have networks which are seamless. You have a lot of more trust on connectivity within the networks, which is really leading to help me run my robotic surgeries and other things that's taught. Luxembourg, I don't know if any of you followed it or not, Luxembourg is the first country that is building up a very, very integrated railway network systems, which will really use the entire strength of technology and the telecom communication networks to really roll out a large integrated telecommunication and railway network. They've actually set up an association, which is a combination of railways and the telecom network at the government level, where they're actually integrating things and building in an integrated platform around themselves. And though Luxembourg is a small country, but because of the way Europe works, they still carry 25 million subscribers probably every year, and probably 200 metric tons of goods. So it's a massive network railway system that they have. And whether you go to Belgium, whether you go to Luxembourg and the allied areas around that piece, this network, and they've said that they will roll out a complete network by the year 2026. So that's the speed at which some of these countries are following. And this has been possible only because of 5G network that got rolled out in those countries, probably a few years before we've had those systems in our countries. The last one is not a cat. The last one is an AI-generated cat, and it looks so real. Today, because of the technology, because of the whole network available with us, AI is becoming such a reality that you can build up anything. And the reason why I give a cat example is probably you can build up anything, whether it's buildings, whether it's cities, whether any infrastructure, or you can actually create a role around that piece. But nobody can imagine that a cat is not an original cat, but it's an AI built-up cat, which is really helping the world. And we're seeing more and more 3D technology coming in, more and more inventions coming in through an AI platform. And the whole world, particularly India, is just talking about AI all the time. And each one of us probably, we will have to upskill ourselves from an AI perspective, upskill ourselves from the technology that we're going to use. And that makes it so imperative that telecom service providers and the technology world will move towards a far more advanced network probably in the next few years. We may be slow at this point of time, and I'll talk about are we really monetizing the whole play or not, but this is something that is definitely going ahead. I think, I always remember this word where, Vodafone used to talk about the fact that I and connected, I and you and I are connected in the Vodafone world. Today, and that was so relevant at some point of time. Today, it is no longer you and I connected. Today it is you and I along with all my zillions of IoT devices that need to be connected. At one point of time, if I was connected with a colleague of mine through a mobile phone, that was good enough. Today, it's not about getting connected to individuals, but it's really getting connected with all the IoT devices around. And if you look at it, the number of devices that are connected today are far lower than what it will be probably in a few years from now. Even at our homes today, I don't know how many devices get connected to our routers today. It's not about just the phones. Phones probably are only 20% of the devices that connected in our houses as well. So how is the entire infrastructure getting built up to really connect each one of them is something which is very, very critical. 4G, we've all lived our 4G era, and we continue to live on the 4G era. Good network, speed network, but the latency was small. The latency was low. Probably the speed was not as good as now. But obviously with the 5G network, all of us are experiencing it. When you're connected to the 5G network, the speed is very, very different, and we know how we're actually spacing it. Network slicing, obviously something that probably will come out in probably months to come, and we'll see how effective this is. I think the whole question is, do we really have a rolled out network across the board? I think a couple of examples before I wrap up. This is one of the largest ports in the world. It's the 10th largest port in the world. It's the second largest port in China. They've done a seamless connectivity with the 5G network in this era and a strong private network, which has helped reduce carbon emissions, which has helped reduce labor cost, which has helped increase the productivity. So every right thing they've really ticked off in the box from a Tianjin Post perspective. So again, something that probably we will see a lot more coming into India. So there's nothing to get lost about the fact that 5G is not getting monetized. I think probably it's taking a little while, but I think we will see a lot more monetization of 5G in this country. And I've got colleagues of mine sitting from Jio here. I think a fantastic experience last year or earlier this year when we had on the IPL. You could see IPL on your televisions with different cameras, different views, different visions, again, possible through the networks. So a fantastic experience that we've had around that piece. I think I've talked about connectivity, and Bosch is a classic example where a lot of connectivity is happening across the 5G platforms and integrated machinery being built up, less manpower, and so on and so forth. Yeah, the question is why, and this is probably, sirs, during the day, I think one of the things that probably the audience will be interested in, why are we not able to monetize 5G the way we had probably envisaged, the way the world is expected? And a few things is, do we have seamless connectivity? Is there an issue? Is there an issue with probably awareness of the program, with the awareness of 5G network? We are now out of the window when it came to spectrum allocation, whether it's going to be with the private networks, whether it's going to be the industry, etc. So I think that's something that we'll probably debate during the day as to why these 5G networks are not really helping us monetize what we had to do. But I think that definitely the road is really strong. I think with that, a couple of examples around India, farming is there, where I think, considering the fact that we're a large rural economy, I think use cases around farming, use cases around agriculture, close edge computing are going to be very, very critical. Also, digital twins. I think, if you look at Singapore, if you look at Sydney, we've had a very, very successful digital twins coming in those cities. Amravati is one of the cities which is a greenfield city in India. That's actually evolving on a digital twin platform. So we're seeing roots of it coming up in India, and we'll see more and more happen over the years to come. I think lastly, what I wanted to talk about was also from a mining perspective. Again, India is a fairly good mining country, and we're actually working closely with one of the telcos in India, building up a use case on mining as to how we can provide a safer environment, right ecological balance, making sure the air is clean, and safe for the miners who go deep inside, probably 500 meters, a kilometer inside. So those are some of the use cases that the industry is really picking up from a perspective also. Last case is hydrogen. One of the countries, Bosch has actually built up a hydrogen platform where instead of storing hydrogen in the basements, because of real-time connectivity, I can take it through the pipe and fill all my trucks. So I save a lot on carbon emissions, I save a lot on my capex, I save a lot of on my opex. That's the piece, those are some of the ideas that will probably scale up over the years to come. I know there's time ticking off, but I think with that, I'll probably wrap it up. But I think wish you all the very best for this event in the day. And I think there's absolutely no reason to lose hope on 5G. I think we'll see a lot more use cases in terms of 5G coming up. Yeah, 5G will largely service our B2B segment, and I think that's what the conference is. Thank you very much, and wish you all the very best for the conference.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vaish. Can you just be on stage for a minute? May I invite Mr. Puneet Chopra, Telecom CTO, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, to please present a memento of our appreciation to Mr. Vaish.
Hey, Puneet, how are you? How are you doing?